You don't actually want open world games.
Gentlemen, we all know that it is of paramount importance that you spend quality time gaming with the homies on the weekends, that you
Hell yeah, dude.
make time for the boys. But when is the last time you spent quality time with the boys? You know,
Oh.
your boys.
Like 2 days ago.
Because much like a rich friendship, your personal hygiene cannot be neglected. Fortunately for you, the Performance Package 4.0 by Manscaped has everything you need to give your hygiene a major buff. The Lawnmower 4.0 comes with skin-safe technology to help prevent nicks and cuts, a built-in LED so that you can see what you're doing,
It's a dick and balls.
and is also cordless and waterproof so you can comfortably use it in the shower. You heard that right, Smash players. If you're like me, you sweat a lot when gaming, especially this time of year, and luckily also included in the performance package are the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and the Crop Reviver Ball Toner Spray to keep your particulars feeling fresh. The Performance Package 4.0 also comes with the Weed Whacker Nose Plus Ear Hair Trimmer, as well as not one, but 2 free gifts. The Manscaped Anti-Chafing Boxer Briefs and the Shed Travel Bag to keep it all in one place for you. If you're ready to buff your hygiene, don't miss out on 20% off plus free shipping when you use the promo code Daryl at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code Daryl at manscaped.com. Thanks again to Manscaped for sponsoring, and without further ado,
Nice.
onto the show. Hi there. Let's take a trip down memory lane. Can you think back to a time when, as a child, you were told no? Can you think of a time
Yes. When was it? I've been told no plenty of times. So like there have been plenty of times where I'm like, Mom, can we go to the gas station and get a booster pack of Pokemon cards? And she's just like, no. Tons of times. What else? Can we go to McDonald's? I want to get the little Pokemon Pokeball of the Golden Pikachu, the Golden Mew, the Golden Charizard, and all that jazz. She's like, nope. We don't got the money. Yeah, tons of times, man.
where maybe you wanted to stay up past 10 on a school night when you thought M&Ms were a perfectly fine meal substitute for your mom's meatloaf?
Well, they are. They actually are. And meatloaf is not bad, all right? Nobody's knocking on the meatloaf. I ate the meatloaf back then, and I eat the meatloaf now. But, you know, M&Ms were an acceptable alternative.
When you felt as though keeping this stray dog was a no-brainer, and your ma and pa hit you with the stern, absolutely not. In those moments, most of us feel a deep guttural sickness, a form of rage and adolescent angst that we have all come to know as rebellion.
Yeah.
Because inevitably, you pop out that DS at around 10:30
Bro, what?
under the covers when your parents thought you were asleep.
Bro, look how old this footage is of a Game Boy DS. There's no shot that this is like... This looks like it came from like 1990 or something. Like, was this the first time the DS came out? There's no way it's this old, like, the footage.
You'd sneak some M&Ms out of the pantry when your dad was wrapped up watching the Dolphins, and you've adopted 5 dogs in college because no one can stop you now. Being told no is an unpleasant experience, especially when that no is dictating what we can and cannot do.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating about this primal rebellious feeling is that it has a direct effect on how we view and play games, most notably the open world game. You see, my dear friends, it's not just clickbait, it's not just a hot take. I have genuine scientific reason to believe that games like these are not what you think they are. You don't actually want open world games.
That's reasonable. Because if people wanted like true open world games where you can do whatever you want whenever you want, it's like, to like what degree do you want the open worldness, you know? Like take Skyrim for example. I mean, that's like an open world game or whatever, but you can't do like little teeny tiny things or whatever. Like what a normal person would do, you know? Skyrim, you walk around and, you know, you can slash stuff, shoot stuff, magic stuff. Other than that, it's like, well, I don't know, maybe Skyrim's a bad example. I mean, you could do like a good amount of fucking things in Skyrim. Okay, let me keep listening.
at least for the reasons you think you do. Because while I acknowledge there are a lot of reasons someone might want an open world game, the views, the exploration, the world building, the environmental storytelling, the scale, the sensation of feeling small in the universe, an excuse to ride a horse, a chance to turn up the HUD, refuse fast travel, and just get lost. I also know that freedom comes at a cost. And no, it's not that exploring the big world doesn't fit the pace and urgency of the story. It's not ludonarrative dissonance. It's not that open worlds are hard to fully fill with unique content, that the difficulty curve is warped, or that sometimes it feels like the market is a bit oversaturated with them. It's that what you want from them is not actually what you think they'll give you, it's what you think they won't give you. I promise this will make sense in a moment. Welcome to the show.
I am enticed.
In an old 1974 study, psychologists presented college students with a set of 3 attractive items: cologne, cash, and course credit, meaning they could get out of participating in a future study, so we'll call it time. Each student ranked these 3 items on how attractive they found them. If it was me, I'm probably going time, then cash, then cologne. You might choose differently, but regardless, after each student made those rankings, they would be told one of 3 things. One group of students was told that they would receive their highest ranked item.
Oh, so what was it? It's like, yes, you get it, maybe you'll get it, and then no, you won't get it?
Lucky them. The second group was told that they would be randomly assigned one of the items to keep, and the third group was told that they would receive their choice of any of the 3 items, regardless of how they ranked them.
Wait, what?
However, a little later on when it came time to cash out on those items, what actually happened was that all 3 groups, no matter what they were promised, received one of the 3 items at random. Now, as you can imagine, some participants were a little angry, and this is what the researchers were counting on and what they intended to study. If you were just told you'd get your most attractive item, the cash, and then instead got cologne, of course you'd be upset. But what the researchers did
How do they give out time? Like, what does that mean?
not count on was that the group that was most upset was not the one told they would get their number 1 item, it was the group that was told that they would get to choose.
Oh, that's okay. So it's like, okay, you get to choose. And then a couple seconds later, it's like, okay, here you go. It's like, well, hey, I thought you said I could choose. No, we lied. It's like, okay.
It wasn't the loss of the item that frustrated the students the most.
It was the loss of the choice. Ooh.
It was the loss of freedom. This was even true when the students told they would have a choice actually happened to still receive their highest ranked item. Even if they ended up getting the item they most desired, they still became upset because they wanted the option to decide for themselves.
Ooh.
This frustration is the same guttural feeling we had as kids and even as adults, that rebellious, you can't tell me what to do, and subsequent doing of said thing simply out of spite. It's a phenomenon known as reactance, an unpleasant motivational arousal that emerges when people experience a threat to or loss of their free behaviors. It serves as a motivator to restore one's freedom. And this paper is one of the first.
That's why kids hate things like timeout and shit. You know, like go to your room, go stand in the corner, go get away from everybody, think about what you did.
First of many over the years to find results like this. A handful of studies have found that people whose choices are restricted like this usually feel uncomfortable, hostile, aggressive, and angry. Based on what I posted recently, yeah, I think it's fair to say that we generally dislike whenever games do this. Other research shows that freedom-threatened people may simply exhibit the restricted behavior anyways, or observe others performing a related behavior.
Yeah, like, what was this? Was like everybody just lined up and you could see like everybody else's reactions to them getting the item or not getting the item, plus their reaction?
Have you ever tried to brute force a boss or a level despite the game wanting you to do it the intended way?
Yeah. And let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and use Skyrim as an example again. So like when Skyrim first came out, like years ago on, I forgot, what was it, 360? when Skyrim first came out, so I'll preface this. I played Oblivion before Skyrim, luckily. And then I played, I don't know, maybe like 100 or so hours or whatever. Like I beat the game. And then, I leveled up like a bunch of skills or whatever. And then in doing so, I figured out that it was possible to level up like the sneak skill in Oblivion by sneaking in a circle around an enemy or whatever. So how I did that was I took a piece of string or two pieces of string, or it was string or tape or whatever. Maybe it was rubber bands. And I pulled one joystick one way and the other joystick like forward. So it'd be like forward and then left or whatever. So I would like sneak in a circle and I would just leave it there. And I hid behind like a rock or something. And then over the course of time, it's like I came back periodically looking at it and I was like, oh, shit, this actually works. This is pretty cool. So I remembered that when Skyrim came out. So fast forward and then Skyrim comes out. I was curious to see if there was some sort of way where they had that same mechanic because you could level up your sneak. There was a category with sneak that you could level up. And you level it up the same way. You crouch, you have that little eyeball in the center. And in the beginning of Skyrim, what was it? No. Yeah, no, I'm thinking of Oblivion. In Oblivion, you started in the cell. Yeah. So in the beginning of Skyrim, there's a part where you come up to like a big bear in a cave or something. And you could see it from like really far away, but the bear didn't see you because it was like sleeping or whatever. So I walked up kind of close to the bear because there was like a range you had to be in. And what I figured out is that you don't need to spin in a circle like anymore with Skyrim. You could literally just plant yourself, what was it, in like a corner or something and just hold down like forward on the joystick because I did the same thing. And I think I left the game for a couple hours or whatever. And by the time I got back, I had sneak like up to 100 within the first couple hours of the game releasing or whatever. And from like for the rest of the game, I was just like maxed out on sneak and I could play the rest of the game like however I wanted. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So much so, like I even took pictures of the controller like rig that I had. There was like some strings and whatever, like holding the joysticks whichever way. And I'm like, dude, I got sneaked to 100. They're like, no, you didn't. The game just came out a couple hours ago. I'm like, yes, I did. And then I took a picture of my TV showing him. He's like, no fucking way, how'd you do that? And then I showed him, what I did. And I just breezed through the game. The game wasn't intended for you to have like 100 sneak right off the rip. But I was like, fuck that. The game's way more funner like this, just going through and one shot and shit, stealth archer style.
Have you ever found yourself watching someone do a run of a game that would make the devs go,
no, this isn't how you're supposed to play the game?
Some folks may aggressively force the threatening person to remove the threat to free choice, or they may behave in a hostile and aggressive way just to let off steam.
So I can see this and relate this to like a lot of Blizzard games. Most notably World of Warcraft. So like in the skill curve of like World of Warcraft, you got your X and Y axis and then you got your normal bell curve or whatever. When I did play, I got to that like there's like a chunk or like a point where there's like a blob of people that are like pretty good, but they're still missing like a couple things. This you could probably relate this to doing like 15 keys on Mythic or something like that, like about that range or whatever. And then trying to transition from like doing like heroic raids into like mythic raids or whatever. There's like a little blob of people for like relative to like skill or whatever. And after that, like I was kind of like in that little bump, but I think some like Race to World First thing popped out at the same time, so I'm like, oh, I'm watching that. And then like there was like a couple of videos that got released stating that, hey, all these raids, they are tuned for like the first week or two of people, like all the hardcore guilds or whatever. They're specifically tuned in a way that only those people, like Blizzard is trying to gatekeep those people to make it as hard as humanly possible to complete the raid like as quickly as they can. And that because like a week or two later they just nerf the raid so that everybody else can do it, and I'm like, this is so stupid. And once I figured that out, I was like, I'm not playing WoW anymore. This is dumb. I'm like, what are they doing this for? They're like trying to design the game around the top 1% of players, and it's like to try to slow them down, and I'm like, this is dumb. I'm out of here. So yeah, I could totally see this happening with World of Warcraft.
You ever wonder why people get so damn upset that Pokemon doesn't look like this? It's not just graphics. One of the biggest complaints I got from you guys was how handholdy and linear some of the old Pokemon games are. And this is all stuff I'm sure you've considered before, but maybe...
So when he says old Pokemon games, I'm thinking like old Game Boy, like red, blue, silver, gold, and then maybe like another generation after that. That's what I consider like old. But maybe like a couple of the later Pokemons after that were more handholdy or whatever to try to appeal to a larger audience. So I could get what he's trying to say with that.
Maybe didn't have a name for. We generally don't like when games take away our choices, and that is thanks to reactants. Which brings me to open world games and their mistaken allure. If you like open world games, this is not me shitting on them. I like them too. Again.
So this is you shitting on them. Got it.
When done right, we all know how special they can be. There was a lot that they can provide for you, but what I'm really talking about here
Bro, he gonna walk on a mine somewhere.
Is a misconception. Namely, something we generally think open world...
Bro, we just shot that dude's hat off.
...world games don't provide. Reactants. One of the biggest things open worlds offer the player is freedom, right? Go anywhere, do anything, backtrack, wander to dangerous areas, get your ass kicked, and come back later for some crazy perspective on your growth. What we're after when we pick these games up, by absolute nature, is the openness of the in-game world. If you don't believe me, it's literally the genre name that is fundamentally a large part of the appeal.
Right.
We crave these games on the surface because we are confident picking them up that we won't feel that uneasy simmering reactance when a game bosses us around too much. Because it won't.
Yeah.
Open world games are not supposed to tell you no, and if they were to, we would become irritated, right? Overwhelming enemy force? Bullshit, son. Let me try anyway. Let me see if I can take a little shortcut here.
Yeah. What?
Thanks, Rockstar. Ah, look, an invisible wall, just like the ones back home. I didn't want to trigger this yet. Okay, I guess I'm just doing this now. Oh no. Oh, good. I'm trapped here now. What do you mean I can't pet the turtle? These are just a few examples of moments where the game, for whatever reason, maybe good, maybe bad, takes your freedom as a player away from you. And as we have discussed, this is when good old reactance comes into play. Now we are a little upset, or at the very least, kind of like, and we're less motivated to play the game for the sake of playing the game, and more motivated to restore that lost freedom, to tell the game, you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah, like the more times you play an open world game and you come in contact with more reactants or whatever, things like invisible walls or like forced cutscenes or forced missions or whatever, it kind of takes away from the immersion of the game.
Which leads to brute forcing, hurrying through plot to get back to where you can do what you actually wanted to be doing, or simply moving on to another game that you hope won't make you feel like this.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, in case it wasn't clear, all the examples I just used are from open world game.
Yeah, and also all of these games are awesome.
Which is fine, these things don't bother everyone that plays them. In fact, under the right circumstances, reactants might make your time with the game better, which we'll come
Yeah.
back to. But one reason I think so many people do get irritated by these moments is because a huge allure of this genre, whether we're conscious of it or not, is that we assume that it comes without the threat of reactants. However,
Yeah. So like I would say like if you play like a Call of Duty campaign, you know, you're essentially going from point A to point B with a little bit of, you know, like the boundaries that you can move within that are like like kind of like a bowling lane, you know? Sometimes there'll be like bumpers, sometimes it'll be like narrower, other times it'll be a little more open. And then open world games are kind of the same thing. But I would say open world games are a little more wider with, you know, the boundaries that you can go through. Because, you know, I mean, the point of an open world game, you know, you're going on an adventure, you're going from point A to point B, which is like defeat the last guy, which should take like, I don't know, 50, 100 hours, whatever. And you have this large berth of, you know, things that you can do within that.
in many cases, it does. I'll say it again. You don't actually want open world games. You want the freedom you think they provide. And listen, of course, open world games actually do provide a lot of freedom. These are only specific moments in them. Not to mention, I don't think games creating reactants is a bad thing per se. I think most people would argue that games should restrict the player at least to some degree so that we aren't completely overwhelmed by the sheer quantity of options and side missions and world building and Easter eggs and alternative endings and dialogues and so on. We've talked a lot about how the game restricting our options creates reactants, what we would more specifically call external reactants. But we haven't talked about the other source of this feeling. If you've ever felt yourself frozen at what to do next in an open world game, and then sort of just eventually walked away from it, you've probably experienced internal reactants. In this study, participants experienced choice overload when offered an extensive array of 24 or 30 alternative products instead of a limited set of 6 options.
Gotcha. So like when you're only gonna get offered like let's say a few options, you're more likely to just choose one. But when you're offered like a bunch of options, you're probably gonna be like frozen and be like, holy crap, there's so much stuff, I don't know what to choose.
The high number of choices was demotivating, and even though participants liked having an extensive number of choices more than a limited number, paradoxically, they were less likely to purchase a hypothetical product in the study. And interestingly, participants reported more subsequent satisfaction with their selections when their original set of options had been limited. Even though we initially much prefer to have more options, it seems that we are actually happier when the choice is a bit easier for us.
Yeah.
The reason for this is pretty complex and a bit beyond the scope of this
There's the good option and there's the bad option.
video, but to sum it up, research seems to suggest that if you have a
This is just this is fake news. Just get a PC. These things are inferior.
choice between 2 attractive alternatives, as you try and decide between them, you'll feel reactants simply from having to commit to one of them. By saying yes to Totodile, you're saying no to Chikorita and Cyndaquil, which, based on how reactants works, makes you kind of want the other 2 more. As soon as you commit to a choice, the other options become unavailable and therefore more interesting. You might feel uneasy that you missed out on them, so when you multiply this effect by 30 side quests, 14 landmarks, 4 unexplored vistas, 2 towers, and a horse stable so far, of course you'll feel a big pang of reactants for how you spend your time. If an open world game is too open, if it offers too much freedom, it'll actually cause the exact reactants you were hoping to avoid by picking it up in the first place.
I'm trying to think, has there ever been a game that I played where there was like too many options? I'd have to think. I'd have to think about that. That's That's a good question.
I'll say it one last time. You don't actually want open world games.
You probably want an open world game with a couple choices. Not necessarily infinite amount of choices, but a couple choices with whatever the developer allows you to do.
You want the freedom you think they provide.
Right.
So, how do you strike the balance? How do great games, not just open world games, find just the right amount of freedom without over or under restricting you? Well, having done research for this video, I can confidently say that that's an answer you can find on a better channel. But you can see how Reactance plays into clever design choices that nudge you in the right direction instead of forcing you into it. One of those better channels, namely Adam Milliard, made a great point about how Breath of the Wild doesn't force you to go to the water dungeon first, but most people do because of how the world is designed. Guardians to the north, water to the south, and harsh desert heat to the west means most players will comfortably head east, which is right where the devs would probably like you to start your journey, and yet, I never hear a peep of complaints about Breath of the Wild stepping on the player's freedom. I've never played, but Fallout New Vegas apparently does something similar. Metroid Dread, which I have played, I thought did a great job of this as well. It would keep you from backtracking too much by selectively trapping you on certain large chunks of the map where you needed to be. You still have plenty to explore, but it kept you from getting too far off track, almost sort of suggesting that you stay in this area just because you might find something interesting. And by the same token, it kept you feeling lost by warping you all over the map, but subtly dropping you off really close to where you needed to be to progress the game. Compare that to objective markers and dotted lines that just tell you what you should do, and you can see why the former examples here are world designs that people generally praise. It's sort of like this one time at a water park, I was in line to ride the highest slide in the park. The lifeguard was telling people to slide with their legs crossed for safety reasons. I took that.
Bro, I am scared shitless of like those tall ass water slides. For safety reasons? Hell no, dude. Trying to get me to go down that shit? No thanks. I've seen too many like news articles and shit of like people going down that and they're not doing the thing that they were told to do and they just go like flying off into whatever. I'm just like, nope, not doing that.
Personally, and just assumed it was to keep you from going too fast. So when I didn't cross my legs and several hundred gallons of water was sent rocketing up my gooch and I came off the water slide looking like this, I wish I had listened, and now I always cross my legs on water slides. And as odd,
bro, you just got like a free enema. Sweet.
As it sounds, I think that's really the core of this entire discussion. We don't like to be told. We like to figure it out ourselves.
Right.
We don't want to be told we can't have M&Ms for dinner. We want to throw the meatloaf in Boston Harbor because you can't take away my freedom, Mom. If
I need to learn that M&Ms are not good myself. You can't just tell me M&Ms aren't good as a meal. I need to learn and go through that trial and error period where I eat a whole bag of M&Ms and then I feel sick to my stomach and throw up, and then I learn it from myself, and that's the experience I had.
If I get a stomach ache, I get a stomach ache.
Yeah.
We don't want to be grounded from trying to fight an enemy because the game thinks we aren't strong enough yet. We want to fuck around and find out. Developers make the decisions they make for our own good. The intentions are always pure, much like a parent. But if you tell us not to run by the pool,
we gonna run by the pool, because we out here.
It's just going to make running by the pool even more enticing. You may as well let us slip and bust our ass and learn for ourselves, right? But also, maybe don't do that with your real kids. Concussions are serious business. In games, however, I think Reactance suggests that most people would rather
Bro, there was this one time, because the whole concussion he brought off, there was this one time I was in, what was it, like 3rd or 4th grade? Or maybe it was less, maybe 2nd grade, where there was like monkey bars or whatever, and it was just like some wooden beams and then a cross beam in the center, and then dangling across the cross beam would be these like triangle things you like hang and can like, you know, swing from to and from. But we didn't do that as little kids. What we liked to do is, so you have like 2 lines, one on each side, and we played more or less like a King of the Hill type deal. So what both kids do is you grab the first two rungs or whatever, and then you turn your body to the side so that you could put your feet up on like one of the side pillars, and you try to do a flip, like you run up hanging on, you do a flip, and then you land on your feet, and whoever did it the quickest, they would be able to stay there and do it more. All right. And the teachers were okay with this. The teachers were sitting on the bench, chilling out, doing whatever. So, I got up and I was like, okay at it or whatever. Someone says, ready, set, go. And then I run up the side and I didn't feel like doing the flip or whatever. So I just decided to hang out upside down because I was like, oh, look how cool I am. I'm upside down. I'm so strong or whatever. And then for some weird reason, I took it upon myself to wrap my legs around like the top beam because I thought that was a good idea and let go and try to hang out there as long as I could. All right. So what ended up happening was I fell straight on my back and I got the wind knocked out of me. And it was insanely hard to breathe. All right. From that point, and like when I did that, everything went like white and black or whatever. And I was like, I was still like conscious or whatever, but I was like, it's hard to breathe. So some of my friends helped me up and we walk over to the teacher and I'm like, I tried talking, I just couldn't talk or whatever. And I can't remember what exactly they did. They were just all sitting there like, oh fuck, what do we do? What do we do? So they're just like, here, come over here and come rest and relax and like, here, take a water. Because I was able to walk fine or whatever. I was just like doing that noise over to them. And they're just like, okay, I think you're good for the day. So, at the end of the day, I was fine or whatever. But, I just sat there drinking some water, trying to catch my breath or whatever. But holy crap, I never did that shit again.
Consequences instead of restriction. But obviously, some restriction is still necessary to keep that player in the happy place between being told and being completely on their own.
Yeah.
In the final stretch of this video, I want to branch out from just open world games and maybe talk about times where reactants may actually be intended and can even enhance the experience. One of the most annoying sections in a game for me as a kid was the Forsaken Fortress in Zelda Wind Waker, where you lose your sword and have to sneak around without getting caught to get it back.
Oh, sneaky.
Of course, it was frustrating to lose the option to fight, especially after just getting it, but that was also the point. Reactance is a motivator. We want to restore that lost freedom, so eventually getting that sword back felt all the more rewarding because of that reactance. The same can be said of Chapter 5 in Red Dead 2, which another one of those better channels, Rasputin, made a great point about. You're stuck in kind of a linear part of the story with no way to get back to your usual routine in the game, and that loss of freedom actually serves as such a good motivator that it refreshed his experience with the game and made the world he returned to much more interesting. As soon as it was taken away, it became more appealing. Reactance aside, we all know that restricting players' freedoms can jumpstart the gameplay in other ways. In Mario Sunshine, those sections you have to do without food forces you to approach them differently, and Eventide Island in Breath of the Wild, where you lose all your gear and start from scratch, was fun for the same reasons. Remember these teleporty chests in Elden Ring that drop you in a super hostile part of the map? Sneaking out back to safety was a hell of a ride and an organic change of pace.
Bro, they kind of did this in Skyrim. I think the one or two times I got caught and I got sent to jail or whatever, I was like, and they took away all your gear except like a random lockpick that you had or whatever. And it's like, if you were smart, you would save the game as you're in your cell and you could try to lockpick the thing when the guard walks away. So that way, in case your lockpick like just gets broken or whatever, you could like save and retry again. But even then, you could like, I think if the guard, I forgot maybe the pathing, but like there was a guard that like walked towards the door, and then he turned his back towards you so you could like pickpocket him, and he had like more lockpicks or whatever. And then once you like get out of the cell, it's like you have to find your gear. And if you've never done that before, you're like, holy fuck, where's all my shit? Where's all my Daedric like amped up like fire and ice shit? And I was like, holy crap, where's my gear? And I was like, oh, there's a chest. Hopefully it's in there. And what do you know? Everything was right back in that chest. I was like, oh my god. So yeah, that was a really good time for like a really good example of a time when the game just takes away all your options and it's like you have to do this now.
One example that I think really plays into its story nicely is in a game called Unpacking, where, you guessed it, you simply unpack someone's stuff into rooms throughout their life. Small, subtle spoiler, but as you unpack one picture in particular and try to put it on a clipboard, you'll find that you actually can't. The game won't let you for some reason. It has to go somewhere out of sight. Just a super clever way to communicate that our silent main character here really doesn't want to see that person's face anymore. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that plot twist in BioShock. If you know, you know.
Yep.
Well, to put a neat little bow on this, I'll simply say that we don't like to be told no, especially when it's this little shit ruining our social life. And much to our parents' and to developers' dismay, telling someone not to do something usually causes them to only want to do that thing more, and almost always causes at least a tinge of negative emotion. Open world games, on the surface, look to be the cure for this, but as we've seen, this is not always the case, and in fact, sometimes, for our own good, we need to be told no. The secret sauce that makes any game, not just open world games, operate around our reactants comfortably is to suggest, encourage, and provide learning opportunities instead of simply saying you can't. Because when left with too much or not enough freedom, well, I think you know the rest.
Yeah.
Hello, you delicious baked potato. Thank you for being you and for watching this video. I'll be perfectly honest, I was not in the mood to make a video this month. It's hot, I'm tired, I can't stop playing Neon White, and I just want to do anything other than write. But oddly, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out.
Yeah, it was a good video.
You enjoyed it. Let me know down below a time when you definitely felt reactants in a game, and maybe how it improved or tarnished your experience. As always, I can't thank my tremendous Patreon family enough.
Bro, probably anytime I played Pokemon in the beginning, oh my god, like, this was like an unintentional thing. Like, one of the first video games I ever played was like, what was it, Pokemon Blue or Red? I forgot. I just forgot. But when you first start up the game, you start in your room or whatever. And I think this is my first time playing a Game Boy or whatever, and I was like 5 or 6 or something like that. And I'm playing it, and I did not understand how to progress the game outside of my room. All right, I was walking everywhere, every which way in my room, and it wasn't until I accidentally walk on the carpet and then hit down again that I get out of my room. But it didn't register to me as a kid. So then once you're out of your room, you're in your house. Because like your room is on the second floor, and your like the main house is like on the first floor. I didn't understand what I did, and then I was trapped in my house. I didn't understand you had to walk on the carpet and hit down again, or whichever way it was. And I got so frustrated. I asked my mom to do it. She didn't understand what to do, and I was just going like from my like the first floor to my room like so many times. It just didn't click to me as a child that I had to hit down again on the carpet. So much so that I was debating on whether or not to like return the game. I was so like frustrated with Pokemon or whatever. But I mean, eventually I was able to like get out and play the rest of the game. And yeah, that was that was hilarious. Just thought I'd share that. Yeah.
For supporting the show, and I'd like to send a special shout out to this month's featured patrons, Josiah White,
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, I think it was a pretty good video about the whole open world thing. You do want open world games, but you don't want so much choice. Because if you do have so much choice, then you're just gonna be frozen and you don't know what to do. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I gotta say. This is a great video. I want to see more. Thank you again, Darl Toss Games. I think your videos are awesome. And yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, see ya.